Welcome to the Liminal Observer, Episode 5. Why is enough so difficult? If you really pay attention to the natural world, nature actually already provides enough for our basic physical survival.
Right, the absolute basics.
Yeah, exactly. The fundamental mechanics of just keeping us alive. I mean, the sun shining, the rain falling, the earth growing food, they're just there. But human beings are uniquely restless. We are like the only species that can have a full stomach, a warm place to sleep, and still lie awake at night, agonizing over the fact that we don't have, a slightly larger, marginally more prestigious warm place to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
So why do we always seem to want more?
It is, it's arguably the ultimate human glitch.
Yeah.
And it's this puzzle that really only becomes more intricate and honestly more pronounced the further our society drifts from those basic foundational survival needs.
Totally. And to figure out what's going on under the hood, we're taking a deep dive today into a massive, incredibly diverse stack of sources you sent us.
Yeah, it's a big stack.
It really is. We are looking at everything from modern evolutionary neurobiology papers on dopamine circuits all the way down to ancient translations of Hindu philosophy, specifically the Bhagavad Gita.
Which is quite the leap, I know.
But it works. And our mission here isn't to hand you, the listener, some rigid 10-step checklist to achieve perfect, unbroken contentment. The goal is to look at how science and spirituality tackle this exact same human phenomenon. We want to explore the mechanics of our own desires with curiosity and just embrace the mystery of it rather than demanding absolute certainty.
Which is, truly the most honest way to approach a question this large.
Yeah.
The moment you think you've completely solved the riddle of human desire, you quickly realize that the desire to conquer desire is, well, ironically, it's just another desire.
Right.
You're still on the hook.
You're entirely still on the hook. So you're likely familiar with the concept of the hedonic treadmill, right?
Yep.
That psychological idea that we just adapt to our new baseline of happiness.
Yeah, the classic treadmill.
Exactly. You get the new smartphone, it feels amazing for a week, and then it just becomes the phone you lose in the couch cushions. But what the neurobiology research in our sources highlights is the specific machinery under the hood of that treadmill. It's not simply that we get bored, it's that the chemical driving the pursuit actually shuts off entirely.
Yeah, that is the core biological mechanism at play here. Because we culturally throw the word dopamine around as like a synonym for pleasure.
All the time.
Right. We assume getting the thing we want triggers a dopamine release, which makes us feel joy. But neurologically, the system that drives us to pursue things is anatomically and chemically distinct from the system that allows us to actually enjoy them.
Wait, really? Distinct systems?
Completely distinct. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of anticipation, craving, and motivation.
Okay, so when you were researching that new phone, watching all the unboxing videos on YouTube, and tracking the shipping package online, your dopamine levels are actually spiking then.
Yes, exactly right.
Your brain is actively signaling, acquire this object, it will change our life, it will secure our status.
And the literal second that phone is in your hand, the dopamine production drops off a cliff.
Wow.
Because the anticipation is over, right? So the chemical motivator just shuts down. We are left with a neurobiological reality where there is this hardwired physical disconnect between wanting a thing and actually liking the thing once we possess it.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The wanting system in the human brain is massive, it's robust, and it's easily triggered. But the liking system, which relies on these really fragile opioid circuits, is tiny and so much harder to activate.
Which, that begs the question of why we are built with such a seemingly cruel design flaw. Is this relentless ambition, this constant biological craving for more, an evolutionary gift that kept our ancestors alive, or is it just a modern psychological trap?
Well, it's both. It depends entirely on the context. In evolutionary psychology, this drive is known as incentive salience.
Incentive salience, okay.
Yeah. So imagine our ancestors living on the Pleistocene savanna, an environment of extreme life-threatening scarcity. If they found a bush full of berries, ate until they were full, and then just sat back in perfect Zen-like contentment saying, I have enough.
They would have starved.
Exactly. They would have starved to death the moment winter arrived. The humans who survived to pass on their genes were the ones whose brains rewarded them for constantly scanning the horizon. The ones whose dopamine system said, okay, great berries, now where's the next bush? Where's the mammoth?
which,
Sure.
makes perfect sense in a prehistoric vacuum.
Hmm.
But today, we've taken a brain optimized for extreme scarcity and dropped it right into a modern consumer culture of unprecedented abundance.
A total mismatch.
Yeah, modern advertising, social media algorithms, consumer capitalism, they don't just exist alongside us. They actively hijack this ancient dopamine loop. They are literally engineered to artificially stimulate the wanting pathway 24 hours a day.
And they are unbelievably efficient at it. We are just bombarded with stimuli telling our incentive salience networks that there are always more berries to be found. But the environment has changed so drastically that the survival mechanism has become this profound psychological liability.
Right. And then you throw social comparison into the mix as an accelerant. Because you aren't just wanting a new car in isolation. You're wanting it because your neighbor just leased one.
Oh, absolutely.
And suddenly your brain interprets that social status gap not as a minor annoyance, but as a literal biological threat. It feels like you are falling behind the tribe.
That is the ultimate trap of the modern era. Social comparison turns an ancient survival mechanism into an endless, unwinnable cycle of dissatisfaction.
Because it's relative.
Exactly. Your brain measures relative status, not absolute wealth. You get the promotion, your baseline resets. You buy the bigger house, your baseline resets. The finish line keeps moving infinitely outward because your dopamine system was never designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you moving, basically at all costs.
So, okay, if biology and psychology explain the how like, the literal chemical engine constantly generating this craving, we really need a different lens to understand the why. I mean, how do we actually live with this machinery without making ourselves totally miserable?
Right, that's the big question.
And looking at the sources you provided, human beings recognized this glitch thousands of years before we knew what a neurotransmitter even was. The ancient Hindu philosophers were essentially trying to hack the exact same biological loop, treating this as a timeless spiritual and existential puzzle.
Yeah, and these texts offer an incredibly rich analytical framework precisely because they were grappling with the human condition in its absolute rawest form. They observe the exact same cycles of desire, acquisition, and inevitable disappointment. And they built an entire philosophical architecture around navigating it.
I want to make sure we don't fall into the common Western cliche of looking at Eastern philosophies and assuming the ultimate goal is just, stop wanting things, become a stone.
Right, the ascetic stereotype.
Yeah. In Hindu thought, as outlined in the Upanishads and the Gita, desire itself isn't the enemy, is it? It's our reaction to the desire.
That is the most crucial distinction we can possibly make. In Hindu philosophy, desire itself is known as kama. And kama is not inherently evil or something to be eradicated.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it is recognized as one of the fundamental aims of human life. Kama is the raw, creative, generative energy of the universe. It's the spark that makes us fall in love, compose a symphony, or build a shelter.
So it's the fuel.
Yes. The problem isn't the existence of kama. The suffering begins when kama metastasizes into attachment.
Okay, let's really pull that apart. If desire is a natural weather system, say a heavy rain, you can stand in the rain, experience the water, and just watch the storm pass.
Right.
But attachment would be spending all your time frantically building buckets to catch every single drop, and then, agonizing over the fact that the water in your buckets is getting stagnant or evaporating.
Oh, that's good.
You've taken a naturally flowing resource and trapped it. And in doing so, you've completely trapped yourself.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. Attachment is what happens when we tie our fundamental sense of self, our core internal peace, to the external outcome of our desires. It is the shift from, I want to do this work because it is engaging, to I will only be a worthy, successful person if I get this specific promotion and the corner office.
And this leads directly into the concept of Maya, which Maya is often translated into English simply as illusion, which I think makes people think the philosophy claims the physical world is literally fake.
Right, like we're in the Matrix.
Yeah, but the phone is physically real. The house is real. The money in the bank account is definitely real.
The illusion isn't the object itself. The illusion is the belief we attach to the object.
Yeah.
Maya is the deeply ingrained delusion that these external, impermanent things can provide permanent internal peace.
Ah, I see.
When we fall for Maya, we are basically trying to quench a spiritual thirst by drinking material salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier and more desperate you become.
Which mirrors the dopamine crash perfectly. You get the object, the chemical drops, the illusion breaks, and you immediately reach for the next glass of salt water.
Exactly.
And when we act out of this illusion, driven by desperate attachment, we generate karma.
Right. And we really need to clarify what karma actually means in this context, because it is not, a cosmic tally sheet or a magical punishment system.
It's not a scoreboard.
No, not at all. Karma translates roughly to action, and it operates as the psychological law of cause and effect. It is all about momentum.
It's the behavioral cage we build for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, if you fall for Maya and buy a massive expensive house purely to signal your status and feel worthy, well, that action has direct consequences.
Yes, it does.
Now you have to maintain a grueling job you might absolutely hate just to pay the mortgage. That job causes severe stress. To cope with the stress, you buy more luxury goods, which requires more money, which requires working even more hours.
You've created a totally self-sustaining cycle of suffering. The initial action, driven by attachment to status, set off a chain reaction that ultimately restricted your freedom. That is karma in action. It is the very real, very heavy psychological momentum of our choices.
So, okay, if the biological trap is the endless dopamine loop, and the spiritual trap is attachment and falling for the illusion of Maya, how are we actually supposed to live in the modern world?
Good question.
Because you, listening to this right now, you still have to pay rent, save for retirement, and function in a capitalist society. We can't all just retreat to a mountaintop.
No, we can't. And this is where the framework becomes highly practical. The counterweight to this cycle of attachment is found in concepts like dharma and the symbolism of Lakshmi. Dharma is often translated as duty, righteousness, or purpose-driven living.
Duty to what, exactly?
Well, the core mechanism of dharma is taking action in the world because it is the right and necessary thing to do, entirely divorced from your attachment to the fruit of that action.
Okay, so translating that to a modern career, it means doing your job incredibly well because you value excellence, or because you want to contribute to your team, or because you just have a duty to support your family. You pour your energy into the process.
Exactly.
But you detach your ego from whether you get the end-of-year bonus or the public accolades.
And by focusing on the process rather than the reward, you actually inoculate yourself against the dopamine crash. You are finding fulfillment in the action itself, not waiting around for the external validation.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does. And this framework allows us to engage with wealth and abundance without being spiritually eaten alive by them. Take the Hindu goddess Lakshmi, for example.
The goddess of wealth, right?
Yes, she is the embodiment of wealth, fortune, and prosperity. Notice that the philosophy doesn't demonize wealth. Lakshmi is deeply revered, but the iconography is key here. She is almost always depicted with gold coins flowing freely from her open palms.
So the wealth is meant to circulate. It's a current.
Yes.
If you try to close your fist and aggressively hoard the coins out of fear and attachment, you physically stop the flow of Lakshmi. You basically kill the very prosperity you were trying to protect.
Right. It shifts our entire relationship with abundance from an anxiety-driven hoarding mentality to one of stewardship.
Yeah.
We see this beautifully synthesized in the idea of Krishna consciousness in the Bhagavad Gita.
How so?
Well, the text offers a profound operational manual for engaging with the world entirely. It tells us to fight the battles we must fight, to build the lives we must build, but to do so as an offering. You anchor your mind in the divine or the broader purpose rather than anchoring it in the agonizing anxiety of the outcome. You are fully immersed in the world's abundance, but your core identity is not tethered to it.
Wait, hold on. I need to push back on this a little bit, because we have to grapple with the real-world implications of universally applying this detachment.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we actually did this, if everyone throughout all of human history achieved perfect detachment and was totally content just experiencing the process, without any deep, burning desire for a specific outcome, wouldn't human civilization essentially collapse?
Or at least stagnate.
Right. We only have modern medicine, vaccines, the internet, because someone was deeply, profoundly discontent with the status quo.
Oh, it is the ultimate paradox of human civilization. Discontent is the brutal, necessary engine of progress. The friction of wanting things to be different, wanting them to be better, wanting more safety or more knowledge is exactly what cured polio, built cities, and put humans on the moon.
Right.
If our ancestors were perfectly detached from the outcome of their survival, we wouldn't be here having this conversation today.
So we're looking at a distinction between different flavors of wanting. Is there a fundamental mechanical difference between, say, wanting more in the sense of healthy growth and never feeling enough in the sense of a neurotic lack?
The difference really lies in whether the desire is expansive or contracted. Wanting more out of a sense of growth, say, a desire to learn a new skill, to build a community, or to alleviate human suffering, is an expansive state. It utilizes karma, that creative energy, and aligns it with dharma, your higher purpose. It opens you up to the world.
And the contracted state.
Never feeling enough. The constant gnawing anxiety that you are falling behind your peers, the obsessive hoarding of resources, that is a contracted state. It shrinks your world down to your own fear and attachment.
This means gratitude and ambition aren't actually mutually exclusive. You can be deeply thankful for what you have, firmly rooted in the belief that your present moment is enough, while still energetically striving to build something more for tomorrow.
Not only can they coexist, they absolutely must coexist if we're going to maintain our mental health while functioning in a progressive society. When we compare the different analytical lenses from your sources in this deep dive, the overlap is striking.
It really is.
Modern neurobiology tells us we must manage our dopamine pathways and recognize when algorithms are hijacking our evolutionary mismatch. Ancient Hindi philosophy advises us to engage with the world purposefully, but sever our ego's attachment to the material outcome.
Then you throw in modern macroeconomics, which essentially argues that aggregate human desire, everyone just wanting more, is the invisible hand that drives technological innovation and lifts entire populations out of poverty.
And standing in direct opposition to that, you have contemporary minimalism, which argues that we can only find true freedom by intentionally restricting our inputs, starving the dopamine loop, and stepping off the consumer treadmill entirely.
What makes this deep dive so compelling to me is that none of these frameworks is inherently wrong, and we don't have to declare a winner.
No, we don't.
Economics isn't wrong about how desire drives progress. Hinduism isn't wrong about the spiritual rot of attachment. And neurobiology isn't wrong about the mechanics of dopamine. They're all just orbiting the exact same beautiful, messy contradiction of the human condition.
Perfectly said.
We possess a deep biological imperative to grow, to reach, and to secure our future against uncertainty. But simultaneously, we carry an equally deep spiritual imperative to be at peace, to be fully present, and to feel that we are inherently complete just exactly as we are.
Walking that tightrope is the fundamental task of being human. Leaning too far in either direction carries severe consequences. Absolute rigid detachment can quickly devolve into stagnation and a cold apathy toward the very real suffering in the world.
But unchecked, blind ambition leads directly to psychological burnout, environmental devastation, and a profound, hollow spiritual emptiness.
Exactly.
To bring this out of the abstract and ground it in your daily lived experience, I want to invite you, listening right now, into a personal reflection. Take a second and think back to the very last time you truly, deeply felt the thought, I have enough. And I don't mean intellectually acknowledging that your bills are paid. I mean that rare, bone-deep, settling sensation where you looked at your life and thought, I don't need a single thing to change to be happy right now.
Those moments are incredibly potent, but they are notoriously slippery.
They really are. And that leads to the more difficult question for you. How long did that feeling of perfect contentment actually last? Did it survive the week? A day? An hour?
Usually not long.
Right. And when the wanting inevitably crept back in, what triggered it? Was it an optimized ad slipping into your social media feed? Was it a casual comment from a coworker about their new kitchen renovation? Or was it just the quiet, unprompted hum of your own brain whispering, okay, that was nice, what's next?
If you reflect on that and realize how quickly your contentment faded, it is vital to understand that this fading is not a personal failing. It isn't because you lack discipline or because you haven't meditated enough or because you are somehow broken.
It is literally how the machine is built.
Exactly. It is a baseline feature of the human condition that every major philosophy, science, and religion has spent centuries trying to reconcile. We are biologically and psychologically constructed to experience contentment as a fleeting state, a temporary resting point, rather than a permanent, static destination.
A resting point, yeah.
When we recognize that the fade is a natural biological mechanism, it strips away so much of the shame and guilt we carry when we suddenly find ourselves wanting more.
It's like we're trying to permanently hold our breath in a state of perfect satisfaction. You can hold it for a while, it feels peaceful, but eventually the biology of the body demands oxygen. It forces you to exhale and reach for the next breath. The reaching is inevitable.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. You cannot hold your breath forever, and the goal of these philosophies isn't to force you to stop breathing. The goal is to cultivate awareness of the rhythm.
Awareness, right.
To develop the mental clarity to notice when you're reaching for the next breath is driven by a healthy desire for growth and connection, and when it is being driven by the panicked illusion of Maya and the toxic anxiety of social comparison.
We really find ourselves in a remarkably strange position. We are surrounded by an unprecedented level of natural and technological abundance, yet we are navigating it with these ancient, insatiably hungry minds.
It's a lot to handle.
It is. We are capable of breathtaking innovation, driven entirely by our refusal to settle for the way things are. Yet, we are equally capable of inflicting terrible suffering upon ourselves when we tether our fundamental worth to that endless, unfinishable chase.
The wisdom we're looking for probably isn't found in a magical method to permanently switch off our desires. It's found in building the capacity to sit with the physical discomfort of wanting something without automatically letting that want drive the car.
Yeah.
It is the ability to witness the dopamine spike, to appreciate the allure of the things we desire, but to firmly root our identity in a foundation much deeper than the endless accumulation of those things.
At the start of this deep dive, we promised to leave you with a sense of wonder rather than a closed book.
Yeah.
We obviously don't have the final, definitive answer to the riddle of human desire because you are living out the answer in real time every single day. But as we wrap up our exploration of these sources today, we want to leave you with one final lingering question to mull over. Something to carry with you as you navigate a world that is heavily financially incentivized to sell you the next upgrade. If enough is a finish line that is always moving further away, who keeps moving it?
That is the question.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings in all worlds be happy and free.